It's week number 43 of the year 2020. So we have 11 weeks left of the year. And today is advanced objection handling. So like every day, every objection handling day, we start off with the fundamentals. Number one is you can make up in skill where you lack in numbers. I am a broken record. Anyone who works with me knows that I am indeed a broken record. That's the whole thing about fundamentals. When I served in the Marine Corps, the way that they actually make you crazy is that they always have you chanting out these different affirmations. And so when you say that the Marine Corps actually reprograms you, indeed, it's true. You do get reprogrammed, but it's done through affirmation. So if you continue to tell yourself that you make up in skill where you lack in numbers, then you will get better. Well, you'll start believing it, and so you'll start practicing more. So you make up in skill where you lack in numbers. The person who asks the question always controls the conversation. It's never not been that. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone just keeps on asking you questions and questions and questions? If you have, then you're not controlling the conversation. If you really want to spar with somebody, if you really want to get better at this, purposely, cognitively, make sure that when you're in a conversation, listen to them, respond to their question or their comment, and then ask them another question. And you'll have this, you'll actually have a conversation, but you'll actually, one of you are going to lose, or you're just gonna have a great conversation. You can't change a person's perception or belief, only they can. You're not gonna be able to say anything magical that's gonna get somebody to convince them different. I get questions almost on the weekly from people in my office about what to say to a seller to convince them to lower their price, right? Always. It's like a weekly thing. And we have 217 agents, so it's bound to happen. But here's the thing. If you're just telling the seller something, if you're just telling them, you're not going to change their belief pattern, their belief system, what they believe. The only way that you're going to do that is ask them questions. It's going to guide them down the road to making a decision, right? For instance, if you're asking them questions about what do you think, how do you think the market's going? Okay, have you seen how many homes are for sale in the neighborhood? Okay, do you think that having more homes for sale in the neighborhood is going to get you more money or less money, right? This house that just came on the market that's $20,000 more than yours, it's 1,000 square feet bigger, that's brand new. Do you think that property is worth more or less than yours? Well, why do you think that, right? So you're asking the questions. If you're just going to tell them, especially if, anyone who just comes up and just tells me something, I'm like, whatever. But if you ask questions and you make them think about it, that's where things change. Now, you don't have a lead until you know your why and when. If you don't know somebody's why or when, you have a prospect. That's it. Right now, you can have a list of prospects, people who own a home, who live near you, that you don't know if they want to sell it, and you start calling around them. And the main focus that you're going to have to ask them is find out where their why and the when. Now, number one, if it's a cold prospect, then you want to get an idea of if they're interested in selling. And if they're interested in selling, then you got to find out what their why is, and then you got to find out when, right? If somebody wants to move just because they want to move, just because they want to see what's going on in the market, they're going to list the property 20%, 30%, 50% overpriced. And then when you ask them their when, they're like, well, when I get my price, I'll move, right? Not a good lead, right? Definitely not a lead, right? Their why and their when dictates their motivation. The why dictates the motivation. The when gives you the temperature gauge on their motivation. When in doubt, mirror their objection as a question. Now, I do this all the time deliberately because it is also a technique to actually pull more information out of somebody. 90% of the time, you're going to get that special kind of someone that's just totally shut off, right? You're going to ask a question and they're just going to be very monotone and they're just going to answer your question and then shut up. They're shut down, right? Work on them a little bit, try to warm them up, but when in doubt, mirror their objection as a question. And the last fundamentals before we get into the objections, you'll never get better at anything without practice. You're never going to get better at anything without practice. Look, everybody has natural ability. There's always someone who's more natural actually speaking out in front of people than not. There's always going to be someone better who's naturally good at something, right? I grew up, I was that nerdy little kid in band in junior high, And my best friend was naturally good, naturally better at the trumpet than me. And I just had to practice. I practiced more than him. And it kind of made me upset that I had to practice so much and he'd still wipe the floor with me. But eventually I beat him, right? For those of you that were in band, they have like a ranking system on chairs. Anyways, guys, so those are the fundamentals. Those are, I typically have more than 6, but I forget to write them down. And sometimes they just come out through conversation. But those are the fundamentals of telephone communication and communication in general, in lead generation, in sales, in salesmanship, salespersonship. I think that's politically correct. All right, guys, this week is interesting. Here's what we've done. We've officially, I did not see any new objections this week, any new structure, right? Typically, you have the same type of objection. It's just framed a different way. And this week, we didn't have any new, so I just kind of recycled them. So we're just going to kind of just do a review and kind of go through this. So it's 8:37. Oops, let me go back. So my best friend is in the business. You know what, guys? I don't know about you, but I have a lot of best friends that are in the business. And a friend of mine yesterday told me that in California, the number of real estate agents compared to the population is like 5 to 1, right? You can't go anywhere without having someone in the business. But and for those of you that aren't in Southern California, which is the majority of everyone, but for those of you not, I would encourage you to look at your numbers. I just looked at the data, and for those of you that are in my office, I'm going to be going in deep on these numbers in the team meeting today. There are just over 17,000 real estate agents, 17,000 real estate agents in Orange County, California. 17,000. Yet, only just over 10,000 of them have actually done a transaction in the last 12 months. That's a lot, right? So the majority, almost half of those people just don't even do business. Now, my definition of actually doing business is doing one transaction in the last 12 months, right? You have to draw the line in the sand somewhere. Now, are you going to make a living wage off of one transaction a month? If you can't make a living wage living in Southern California off of selling one transaction, my guess is that any other market, you're not making a living wage in any other market. So unless you're one of those people that just bank a $10 million house once a year, which I'm sure there's somebody, I just haven't come across them yet. So when it comes down to my best friend in the business, you have to acknowledge the fact that this might not be an objection. This might be a condition. I can tell you right now, well, number one, I wouldn't work with my best friend in the business, but that's me. I'm that special kind of someone. But there are people, and I don't take offense if a friend of mine chooses to work with somebody else, because my relationship with them might be too close. They might be uncomfortable sharing a lot of their personal details with me. They might not, right? But you have to understand that that's how relationships are. Is that if you have a best friend that knows everything about you, but you don't know their finances, you don't know their situation, they may or may not work with you. But anyways, my best friend's in the business. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I totally get it. In fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but for every 5 people, for every single person in the population, there's a 5 to 1 ratio of a real estate agent. So it's not surprising to me that you have a friend in the business. I have most of my friends in the business. But if you don't mind me asking, most homeowners are looking to sell their home for the most money in the quickest amount of time. Is that true for you? Well, yes, Brett, that is true for me. Okay, and most of them are hiring the best person for the job, typically not just anyone. Is that also true for you? Yes. Okay, now you're getting somewhere. Guys, look at my line of questioning. I'm deflecting. I'm not telling them. I'm actually very curious, right? Look how I started out. I said, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that you have a friend in the business. I acknowledge what they said. I'm hearing them. But let me ask you this question, if you don't mind me asking. Okay, now you're asking permission, kind of. It's more of a softener. If you don't mind me asking, most homeowners deflecting, I'm talking, it's a one-on-one conversation, but I'm saying most homeowners, so it's like I'm bouncing it off the wall to them. Most homeowners want to sell their home for the most money in the quickest amount of time. Would you say that's true for you? I've never had anyone say they want to sell their home in the least amount of money in the least amount of time, right? No, Brett, I want to sell my home 50% over the market and I want a year to do it in. I've never heard anybody say that. So if you come up with somebody that says, no, that's not my goal, you got to ask a different question. So let's, for this assumption, say yes. So, okay. And again, most homeowners that are actually doing that, they typically want to work with the best agent, the one that has the most experience, not just in the business, but in their market, right? Is that also true for you? Yes, I do. Do you mind if I ask what your best friend's name is? No, I don't want to share that. Okay, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to know, I do a lot of business in this area. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I was just wondering if I knew them. But so look, guys, I took that little nudge to them. I'm awesome, right? I've done this. I've sold a lot of houses. Now I'm going to tie it into this one. Do you know, is your best friend a full-time real estate agent? Well, no, they're not. Oh, they're not a full-time agent. Do you think a full-time, that's interesting because, one concern that I would have is, see, I'm keeping it away from them. I'm not attacking them. Look at my language patterns. One thing that I would be concerned with working with a part-time agent is how is a part-time agent going to provide you with full-time results, right? So now you're kind of going back to the reservation, going back to it. If they really say that, look, I get it. I know that if I worked with a full-time agent, I know that if I worked with you, that you'd sell my home for top dollar and the most money, but it's not about that with me and my best friend. Look, he would hate me. She would hate me. And it's not worth it to me to break that relationship. Look, guys, you got to respect that, right? Now, no one is ever going to say those direct words directly to you like I just said those. You're going to have to ask questions and kind of read through the lines, right? That's what we do. We read through the lines. But if it's not true, your line of questionings will actually get you in, at least get you a swing at bat. But you really got to find out, you really got to ask the questions, get down to their motivation, just like everything else. And ultimately go to that, help them line them up to making a decision. And that decision might not be the one that you want. Most of the time, the decision that you want to have happen isn't going to happen. Simply because if that was the case, all of us would be selling every single home in the market, and not every single person can sell every home in the market. So you got to accept the fact that you're going to lose some of the time, probably most of the time. Okay, number 2, what do you do to get homes sold? Okay, guys, now this is a very common objection. If you're getting to the kitchen table and this objection's coming up, you have a flaw in your process, right? We have a system, and Mike Ferry created the system. Keller Williams has a system. Realogy brands have the system. Everybody has the same system, but in my experience, not everybody uses it. Okay, let's work in reverse. You get a commission check. Before that, you have to have a listing presentation. Before that, you actually have to pre-qualify the listing presentation. Before that, you have to send them a pre-listing packet. Actually, switch those. Pre-listing packet, and then pre-qualify the listing presentation. And then you actually have to have a conversation, right? That is the process. So if you're getting to the kitchen table and these guys are completely oblivious to what you do to get homes sold, number 1, your presentation is going to be infinitely longer than what it is. Number 2, you're going to get objections that you weren't planning on getting that you should have gotten on the pre-qualification stage. So I'm just going to assume that we're getting this on the first call, right? Maybe not on the first call, your first cold outreach, maybe a follow-up call or whatnot. Brett, thank you for following up with me. I got to ask, what is it you do to get homes sold? Mr. Seller, that is actually a really great question. In fact, what I'd like to do is see if maybe you're available for maybe 15 or 20 minutes this week for me to show you. Do you think that you'd be able to make some time to meet with me this week? Now, that's what I call a level 1 objection or reply, right? It's going 1 surface deep. 90% of the time, you're probably not going to go any deeper than that. Now, you might get someone who's going to go a little bit deeper. I might be open to it, but can you first share with me what you do to get homes sold? Absolutely. Look, guys, you don't want to just keep blowing them off. If you keep blowing them off, you're going to lose them off the hook. You're not going to keep them. So what do you do to get homes sold? They've asked you a second time. You've got to give them a little bit more. Well, look, here's what I have: a 22-point Brett's awesome home selling plan. I've been doing this for the last 22 years using a very similar plan. It's evolved over the years. Now it has a very large digital component to it. What I do with people who I meet with, before I meet with them, I send over a complete packet of information. I call it a pre-meeting packet that not only is going to go over my 22 awesome plan that Brett does to sell a lot of homes. I'm going to include that in it, but it's also going to share with you, what the compensation structure is and how much you could perhaps make by selling a home based on what the market's doing. So if I was able to get that to you sometime this week, maybe the day or two, do you think that you'd be able to allocate some time, 15, 20 minutes to just kind of dive into that packet of information? And I'm sure it'll answer a lot of your questions. Would you be open to that? Most of the time, they don't go another level, because what you did is that you answered their question by offering them something more in depth, right? Do not try to share your value with them, your action plan, over the phone, right? You're not going to do it. Now, if they go another level deep, say, look, Mr. and Ms. Feller, I want to respect your time. It's in my experience, I've never found it to help somebody to know what I do to get homes sold by having a 3-minute conversation on the phone. So is there a way that I can get this information to you so you can review it first and then follow up with you, right? Maybe that follow-up isn't in person. Maybe that follow-up is on the phone, right? We live in the year 2020. Not all communication, the year 2020 has proven that not all communication has to be done face-to-face. Now, would we prefer to be at face-to-face? Absolutely. Well, no, absolutely not. I'm changing my mind. It depends on the motivation. It depends on your pre-qualification. Maybe you haven't seen the house. Maybe it's a for sale by owner. If you can go out and preview a home and get that done and over with, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, go for it. We're going to wait until after the holidays. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I totally understand that you might want to wait until after the holidays. In fact, I'm getting that from a lot of home sellers. If you don't mind me asking, what is it about after the holidays that makes it more ideal to sell for you? Well, there's just a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of busyness. There's a lot of things going on. Look, so there's a lot you're going to repeat and acknowledge. Oh, you know what? I totally get it. In fact, a lot of home sellers on that. Hey, Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you know if I told you that there are 32% fewer homes on the market than there was last year? Did you already know that information? No, I didn't know that. Yeah, 32%. In fact, a lot of those homeowners are probably thinking, just because not just the holidays, but COVID and the elections, would you say a lot of those homeowners could have just been taking those homes off the market to wait as well? Yeah, I do. Okay. So what do you think what would happen to the home, to you getting the most money for your home if in fact the majority of those 32% that didn't come onto the market decided that they came onto the market? Do you think that would be good for increased prices, or do you think that would be bad to getting a higher price? Well, I think that would be bad. Okay, so if you're like most homeowners, your goal is to sell the home for most money in the least amount of time, right? Well, yeah, that is my goal. Okay, so if by waiting until the end of the year meant it could cost you tens of thousands of dollars in net income or net proceeds in your pocket, would that change things for you? Now, I guided that conversation down to making a decision. It might not change him for him. It might change it for him. But your job as a sales professional is to let them understand what's going on. Let them make the decision for themselves, right? The money might not be the issue. They may not think that the market is as disconnected as what we might think or what I might think, right? But that's not up to us. It's up to them. They get to make those decisions. Your job is to ask questions and guide them down to the path to make a decision so you can make a business decision on which direction you want to go. All right, guys. Number 6, I am doing good on time. Oh, yeah, this is a good one. I've never heard of you. Why should I meet with you? This is where the fundamental comes in. Wait, you've never heard of me? Pause. Uncomfortable pause. Right, wait a second. You've never heard of me? Okay. Well, no, I've never heard of you. Okay, well, you know what? I totally get that. Look, there are 17,000 agents in Orange County. So there's a lot of real estate agents. in the market. In addition to that, how long has it been since you've sold a home? Well, we bought this home back in whatever, Jesus was a child, however long it is. Well, look, it's no wonder that you haven't heard of me because you haven't sold a home, but I'm sure you've heard of my company, right? Now I'm with a major brand. So, if they haven't heard of us individually, they probably heard of the company. That's like, okay. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how many real estate agents do you know? Well, I know, John Doe and I know Jane Doe. John and Doe, are they brothers and sisters? Okay, I'm not going that route. So, okay, and do you know how much business they do? No, I don't know how much business they do. Now, I don't recall knowing John or Jane Doe, and I've done a lot of business in this area. You may not have seen my signs in the yard because my goal is not to put signs in the yard. My goal is to actually sell properties. So if you don't see a lot of my signs in the yard, that's because I'm very good at what I do and I'm able to get homes sold. But let me ask you this question. Notice how I made a statement, and it's kind of like I call this kind of like a hit and run. Has that ever happened to you? My wife does it to me all the time. She'll actually hit me with something and then ask me a question, and it's like hit, and she takes off. I'm like, whoa, what just happened? You're doing a hit and run. And so it's like, look, I've never heard of them. I'm sure they're great people, but I've never heard of them. And I've sold in this immediate area for over 20 years. Now, if you don't mind me asking, is it important that you know who the person that you're working with, or is it important that you actually work with the best person who has the track record of selling homes in your area? Now, you gave them a this or that, right? Typically, when you give somebody a this or that option, they're not going to choose door 3, right? Door 1 or door 2. Oh, I'm going to take door 9. Doesn't typically work that way. So look, are you looking to just hire someone that you've heard of, or are you looking to work with the agent who has the most experience and has sold a lot of homes in your immediate market? Well, yeah, I want to sell the home with the most experience. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Most homeowners like that because most homeowners have a goal of selling their home for top dollar in the least amount of time. Is that true for you? Yes, that is true for me. Okay, so do you think that just because you don't know of somebody that they're not that person? Well, no, I don't think that. Okay, so what I'd like to do, if you're interested in selling your home, is there a time this week that I might be able to come and stop by and share with you some of the things that I do to sell homes? Would you be open to that? What is it that you do to sell homes? Okay, now you're moving on, right? Now we're going back to the other objection. So that's how I would do that. It's unusual that I was able to hammer through all of these at once, but that's how it is. So guys, I am determined to end on time today. So I have 8:54. I want you guys to be able to ask questions, but it can't be a question that's outside of this. Okay, don't ask me what the weather is. Don't ask me what the market's going to do. If you have a question in the techniques and the strategies that I used on these objection handling, unmute yourself, hold down the space bar. Happy to walk you through it. We have literally about 60 to 90 seconds. Anyone want to take me up on that?
Yeah, I have a question in regards to a client that I've sold him. I sold houses for them before, and they want to wait 2 weeks to sign the contract until they finish the painting of the house. So I gave them the counter that it's better to start preparing and talking to all my database about their property, but they still wanted to wait 2 weeks. So what do you recommend that I tell them?
Number one, I don't recommend that you tell them anyways. Remember, telling's not selling.
Okay.
What I would recommend is, hey, we'll role play. Hey, Cecilia, what is it about waiting 2 weeks to get the listing contract signed that makes you feel that that's more advantageous? What is it about 2 weeks that why you want to wait? Can you share with me the details on that?
Yes, and the painting is going to be finished in 1 week, and the repairs are going to be finished, so we will be ready for the pictures. And then I also want to take a look to where am I going to move, because I agree on going to a rental, but I want to see what are my alternatives before I sign the contract.
Yeah, I totally get that, and those are valid concerns. You want to kind of see what's going on. You want to finish the painting. But I guess what I'm really asking you is, look, do you feel that I can actually sell your home? Do you feel I'm the most qualified person to sell your home?
Absolutely. We have
Okay.
proven
Okay, so are there any
testimony.
questions that you have that would cause you to believe that I'm not the right person to sell your home? Like 2
No,
weeks
I
from
just want the home to be ready. I don't want that you show my house without being ready.
Absolutely, 100%. And you know what? You and I are on the same page here. I want to make sure the home is ready as well. But in order to get the home ready from our standpoint, from the marketing standpoint, we need time. We at least need 10 to 14 days to actually prepare for that. My question to you is, do you want to start get ready in 2 weeks, or do you actually want to have ready to go in 2 weeks? Right? You want to get ready to be on the market in 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Okay. So why would we wait 2 weeks now when we can get the contract signed now, and I can get my team, my marketing, get everything put together so that we can, help you get your home sold in the fast amount of time for the most money? That makes sense, doesn't it?
Well,
So
yes,
here's the
but
thing, Cecilia, I'm going to break that down. You've got to get back any objection. You've got to get down to their motivation. You have to clearly understand why in their mind does it make sense to them to wait 2 weeks, because it doesn't make any sense to them in 2 weeks. And then what you have to do, remember, telling them is not going to change the perception. The only way that you're going to change the perception is by asking questions. So what you have to do is ask them why, find out the fundamental reasons in their mind why that makes sense, and then you have to asking questions that starts making them understand why that doesn't make any sense. If it takes us 10 to 14 days to actually get things ready to get the home on the market, would it not make sense that we actually do that now? We're not going to show the property. We're not going to market the property. It's just lead time to get things ready. Do you want somebody who's going to list your property on Wednesday at noon and just do some, cheap cell phone pictures and maybe a cheap YouTube and some cheap stuff to make sure it's on the market in 30 minutes? No. Well, I'm a professional. I sell a lot of homes. My reputation is very important to me. My image, my brand. So we need to take that time to get things sold, which is why I asked that line of questionings. What other questions do you have? What other concerns do you have? All right, because the 2 week concern, that's dumb. There's got to, so you have to ask questions to see if there's any underlying questions, underlying concerns. Do they feel that you're qualified to do that? Satisfy that, then start diving deeper. Okay, it's 8:15.
Okay, thank you.
You got that, Cecilia?
Thanks.
All right, guys, that's what I got. I am on time, not all the time, but on time today. So I will catch you guys later. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Brett.
Bye.